So, hello everyone. Welcome to another indie author interview. I am joined by Emma Frick, who is the author of Forcing Fate, and it's a trilogy. So, it is a completed trilogy that's out now. So, thank you so much for taking time to join me today.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it.
Awesome, awesome. So, let's just get right into it. Tell us a little bit about when you decided that you wanted to be an author and what your path to publication was.
I did not want to be. I've always wanted to be a writer. I have not always wanted to be an author.
Mhm.
I have written ever since I was little. When I was in high school, I wrote like fan fiction because all my favorite characters, the villains, they always die, and I'm like, no, 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 I need to save them. I need to save them. So I've always loved writing, but I did not want to become a published author. It's always been like very nerve wracking to me. Um, but back in 2020, I couldn't find the books that I wanted to read. Like I wanted to read like Aragon with like beastie dragons, but I wanted romance because like I am an adult woman now. Like I want swooning and I want love. And so like I couldn't find like the book that I had the hankering for. And so I decided to write it. I just sat down one day and I started writing, and I wrote 2.5 books before my friends told me, they're like, "You really need to publish this." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no. I can't. I cannot publish. I cannot put it out there into the world." And my husband was like, "No, you definitely need to do this." And I'm like it's so nerve-wracking
Mhm.
putting your work out there. Not because I thought it would be like some big somebody, but like because it's like it's your baby. Like that's you in essence. Like your book is you. And so that was really nerve-wracking. But my publishing journey or whatnot as an indie publisher, I could not have done it without an author mentor because in the indie world, there is so much information out there, and it's easy to become daunted by it and confused by it and all the different paths that you can take. So Sarah Emmer, who wrote Nirel, she kind of like held my hand. I actually beta or not a beta, I arc read Nirel for her back in January of 2023. And I was like, "This is amazing, like, maybe one day I'll be able to do it." And she was like, "Well, let me help you." And so she kinda held my hand and led me through the process, and yeah, it's been a learning curve trying to figure out, especially marketing. Oh my goodness, marketing's the worst. But yeah, it's been a learning curve, but yeah, that's kinda where I am.
Well, I think it's really interesting you say that you wrote like 2.5 books before, you were like, your friends and stuff were like, you need to publish this. Like,
Yeah.
you were pretty much like almost done with the trilogy by that point.
Yeah, I was. And then I told myself, I was like, well, considering this generation of readers, they're very voracious. They want the completed trilogy. Like they don't want to sit there and have to wait for years and years for it to be finished. And I've been in those shoes before. Like I have some books on here that have been waiting years for the next book. So before I ever published Forcing Fate, I was like, "Okay, I need to have book 3 done so that it's ready to go and roll out." And that's provided its own hiccups along the way, because you learn a lot when you work through an editor or with an editor through a book, and then you realize, "I've got 3 books of mistakes." Like, "Oh, I gotta go fix them all." But yeah, I definitely wanted to have it complete before I even published book 1 for the reader's sake.
I love that. And I think I actually like commented on like one of your posts because one of my friends was like, you need to read these books, like you're gonna love them. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna read them. And then I saw that like the last one was coming out, and I'm like, awesome, like I can just read them all back to back, and that's what I did.
Yep,
So
yep.
definitely just marketed straight to me. Um so when you were writing, how do you write? Do you plan? Do you pants? Do you outline? Do you quote? What do you do?
I pantser my way straight on through it. Like, I start with a scene, and then the characters take my hand, and they lead me right along. Like, I can't plot for the life of me. In fact, like, one of my biggest struggles is, like, toward the middle of the book, I kinda know what's gonna happen at the end, and I'm a discovery writer, that's, like, the Stephen King term for it, and so, like, once I discover the ending, I'm like, "Oh, I don't wanna finish it now, like, I already know how it ends, there's no point in me writing it," because writing is like reading for me, and then, like but now I've got readers, and they're like, you can't just leave us hanging, like, you gotta finish it." So yeah, I'm a pantser all the way through.
And I never knew those terms until I read, it's from Save the Cat, right? Um,
I've heard of that book, I have never read it. I've not read one book on writing, to be honest.
they're pretty good. Save the Cat writes a novel is pretty good. But I find it so interesting because like I'm trying to write my book and I'm just like, okay, like I need to plan out like all the scenes, like I need to know like what's happening. I feel like it's kind of like taking a little bit of the fun out of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I, maybe to try to change things up, maybe I need to try pantsing and see how that works.
A couple of my author friends, I mean, everybody has a different method, different things work for different people. But one of my friends, she like has like a bare bones like plot. Like she doesn't go out and map every scene or anything like that. She has bare bones. And then like she writes, but she also kind of pants as she goes along. And like if characters start swinging her in a different direction, she's like, okay, all right. And then like plots again, and then like swings over this way and plots again. Which I don't know, sounds like more work for me. Like I don't like being constrained by anything.
No, for sure, that makes sense. Um, and I know that obviously there are some things that can kind of get in our way sometimes. What do you kind of need in your writing space to stay focused?
Um, I write with 3 children running amok, so there is no focus. It's just chaos over here. I just find snippets of the day that I can write. I have no office. I have like a little bench in my kitchen where I like have all my stuff set up, but do I ever write there? No. I write on a couch, like curled up like a little gremlin. Like I don't have anything that I particularly need. I don't really like listen to anything or like do anything. Um Day or night, children playing and roughhousing in the living room or like movies going on. It's just chaos over here. I write wherever.
You just make it work, it sounds like. You make it work,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
And what do you enjoy most about writing in the fantasy romance genre?
Dragons. Dragons.
I mean, literally, agreed. I didn't
What?
wear them. I left them upstairs. I have these dragon earrings I got from Etsy and I love them.
Oh
I wear
yeah.
um,
Yes, yes.
awesome. I love it. I love dragons. I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, I think that I have to be one of those people and say that I definitely started with Fourth Wing, but then like I just
Yeah.
want to read all the books with dragons. Um,
Yeah.
just
I'm having a hard time finding the beastie dragons, not the shifter
yes,
dragons, beastie dragons and
yes.
romance. And like without it being YA, like there's a lot of like Dragon Rider
Sure.
YA books, but like adult beastie dragons and romance is kind of like a hard like it's hard to find there. Um yeah. I say that I like dragons about fantasy romance, but then my next book that I have coming out, it doesn't have any dragons in it. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just the swooning and the swords and the pointy objects. That adds to it.
And I like, that you said in the beginning, like you wrote the book that you wanted to read because you couldn't
Yeah.
find one to read. I think that's a really, really great way to describe it.
Yeah. And
Um,
I knew I would never tire of it either because it's what I wanted to read. In fact, to this day, like I still go through like Forcing Fate and I'm like, okay, well, let me get some marketing scenes and whatnot. And then I get distracted by like what I wrote. I know how it ends. I know it. And I'm like, oh, this is good. This is amazing.
I like that you, kind of can go back and appreciate, what all the hard work that you put into it as well and these scenes that you've written.
Yeah.
Um, what is your kryptonite as a writer? What gets in your way? Other than
Um,
running around.
I would say it's probably like how like people have ADHD tendencies where they like hyper focus or they get like paralyzed.
I have
I am a
ADHD, so yes, I know.
Yeah, there you go, you understand.
Yeah.
So I am a feast or famine writer. So I'm either like writing like 8,000 words a day or nope, I go like months without writing anything. So I think my biggest hurdle is like myself and like trying to get myself down and to sit and to write. I found that alpha readers really help with that. I have one right now who's literally following as I write. So if I don't drop anything for a while, she's like, hey, this is a really good story. You should keep writing. I would say the biggest hurdle is just like getting, and not even in the mental space, just making yourself sit down to write. Like I can get in the groove once I start plunking out the words, but I have to make myself sit down to do it. I think that's my biggest hurdle.
I actually really like that idea of like having an alpha reader reading as you're writing and being a motivator for you. I actually think that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Um, because I mean, a lot of us, write for ourselves, like you gave an example, but I think it's also like, when you do have an alpha reader or an editor or somebody, a developmental editor who's going along with you, you know that like you're doing it for somebody else. And so like you
Yeah.
want, if you're a people pleaser or something like myself, you want to, make them happy in that way. So that makes
Yeah.
sense. Motivator.
There's kind of a responsibility not just to yourself at that point, but to somebody else. And again, that also comes after being published. I've got fans now. I've actually got people that like, follow me and stuff. And so I have to write to keep them happy. And so, there's a little bit of pushback. It's not just for me. It's not just necessarily a hobby anymore. It's a thing.
Mhm. For sure. And that must be like a weird thing because like you wrote this book, obviously write what you know, write for yourself. And now you do have people, like myself who are
Yeah.
like, "Hey, like, you want to do an interview? Like, I really, really liked your book." So how does that, I mean, how does that feel? Does it feel weird? Like what is that? Yeah.
Yeah, it feels
Weird's
it
the
feels really
word.
awkward. I I was at a signing in Tiffin, Ohio, and I had my first crier, and it was I can't even describe it, but it was like it was so touching, but also very awkward at the same time because I'm like, I just made up these people. Like, I just made up this story. Like, and she's like crying and she's so excited to meet me. And I'm like, that's so sweet. But also, I want to go hide under a rock. Like, oh, yeah, I'm very much introverted, and so, like, I'll try and come out of my shell, and I'll try and be extroverted, especially when I'm in, like, the public eye, when I'm, like, doing signings and stuff like that, but it's, like, it's really exhausting because it is so awkward.
No, I totally understand where you're coming from. Believe me, I think introversion is very difficult to overcome in those ways. I think that just adds another layer of like, oh, like you like what I wrote. Like, thank you. Like it's just like another layer.
Yeah,
But I really hope that, with this interview, we can get more people reading and talking about Forcing Fate. So if you
absolutely.
had to describe Forcing Fate in one sentence or less, what is that sentence?
You know you sent me a list of questions, and this was on there, and I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I can pump out 150 word thousand novel. Like, that is not a big deal. Asking me to write a blurb or an elevator pitch or like a hook to it, and I'm like, I have no idea. So to describe it in one sentence or less, dragons and romance. Is that a complete sentence?
Yes.
Probably not. But dragons and romance. That's all I got.
It's like my favorite question because one of my friends, he watches my interviews and like what I post, and I usually like take like the snippet of the sentence and I use that, to kind of get people to watch the interview and read the book. And he's like, that's like my favorite part because then I know in that one sentence if I'm gonna like it or not. Like I can tell,
Oh,
like I can tell like what it's like obviously like what the main points are, like what the author wants me to know, and then you can also get like the author's personality. So I think that that's great.
I feel like I've totally failed in that aspect now then. Like, dragons, romance. Aha.
Why wouldn't you want to read about dragons and romance? There's
You know,
literally a reason you
good
wouldn't want
question.
to. So who is your favorite character to write and why?
Aviana, which is a good thing because she's the female main character. So it's a good thing that I like to write or that she's my favorite. And I think that she grows a lot through the
Mhm.
trilogy. And I loved writing and seeing that growth. And that she starts out from like this little naive, very like focused, tunnel visioned 16-year-old enforcing fate, and by the ends of fulfilling fate, like she knows how to stand on her own. She is confident in who she is and what she is. And she doesn't need anybody to like make, she doesn't need anybody's approval or anything. And so I really loved writing her because she has such character growth. Like there's other characters in the story that you can rely on them to be who they are and what they are, but seeing her arc was just like it was my favorite.
Mhm. I like that you describe it in that way because I think that character growth is in character arcs, I think we have the redemption arc, we have all that kind of stuff. But I think like the character growth in a way of, like you said, like she starts as like, this like naive, like 16-year-old, right? And then, like you said, by the end of the trilogy, she's grown up and like you feel like you grow up with her, right? So like
Yeah,
that's what I really think that I definitely can relate to that, like after reading the books, and kind of seeing that. So I really like that you described it that way.
yeah.
Um, and on the flip side, what was the most challenging part of writing this book? Like,
Um, I would say the most challenging part is getting to that middle hurdle in every book, and you don't want to write it anymore. I mean, like, and even when it comes to halfway through fulfilling fate, like I had the 2.5 books written before I ever decided that I was going to publish. Like I had no drive to finish it because I knew how it ended. So the biggest hurdle in it has just been pushing through and continuing to write it. It's not been any particular scene or character or anything like that. It's honestly comes back to just me. It's just me. I'm difficult. Um, but like just pushing through and like getting to the end of it. But yeah, I think that's just been the biggest thing.
how do you decide where to end each book? Is it natural? You feel like, oh, like duh, or do you have to kind of think about it?
Um, I I don't remember really thinking about it. I remember writing the scene that Forcing Fate ends on and realizing this is going to be more than one book. Like there's going to be more than one book here. So I don't think I don't think I really thought about it a whole lot. It just happened, and then it was a natural like. I mean, you know that I end in cliffhangers, and so it was a natural like cliff jump off point. It's like okay, I can leave it here, and I can start the next one. It's great.
And that's like one of like the biggest things that like I do ask authors because I find it like, especially like you said, if you know that you're going to be writing that, right? Like the book that I'm writing, I know it's going to be four. Like it has to be because of, what it is. And I'm just like, I mean, like I want to end on a cliffhanger because I want people to continue reading, right? You gotta get them to read the
Yeah.
second one, which I think that's always the difficulty, right? Is like everybody reads the first one and then they don't always continue in a trilogy to the second one.
Yeah. I actually I very much like cliffhangers. Some people don't. Some I've gotten some scathing reviews about people who do not like the cliffhangers. Um but I also don't like I mean, I won't continue reading necessarily if it stops in a good place. If the characters are happy and fine, I'm okay with them being happy and fine. I have Serpent and Dove over here, and I absolutely love that book. Yes, it's so good, but I have no interest in reading the next book. One, because it does not follow the same characters, and two, because the main characters are happy where they are. Like, I don't need to finish the series or trilogy, or I don't even know what it is, but I don't need the next book. I'm happy. I'm happy with what I got.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And enforcing fate, do you have a favorite scene or quote?
Again, this was one of the ones where I was like, okay, I need to prepare for this. I need to prepare for this. And I
You wrote so many words. How do you pick some?
right? I have like so many in there. I would have to say my favorite quote. is the tagline. It is fate does not always tell you no. Sometimes fate tells you wait. Like that honestly has been very important in my own life and learning to wait for things that it doesn't just because you can't have it now doesn't necessarily mean no. It just means wait. And so I think that would be like my favorite line in the book. I also like in book 3, I'm gonna try to keep this spoiler free, but book 3, Rafe's line, no regrets. Super simple, but very important. And again, to me personally, it's very important that, we don't have any regrets because the events that you've went through are what made you. They're what shaped you into who you are. And so instead of being like bitter about it, just embrace it. Like no regrets.
I love that sentiment. And I think, I mean, I'm a mental health counselor in my full time, so I can absolutely see that. I mean, working with people's mental health too. Like you
Yeah.
can, like some crappy things can happen and, like that's not that we shouldn't validate and remember that, but
Yeah.
always like learn from those things, like either what like you don't want to do in your life or you learn something and everybody makes mistakes and you learn from those things and then you
Yeah.
move forward. And living in regret is really causes you to suffer twice, really, because you
Yep.
suffer and then you suffer thinking about it.
Yeah, if you're just living in regret, then you're only hurting yourself at that point. You've got to keep moving forward. You just got to keep going. And I think that's what Aviana does in the Fate Unraveled trilogy. She just always keeps moving forward, even if it's uncomfortable and even if it hurts. Like she just keeps going.
Mm.
So
Perseverant, like to a T.
yeah.
Um, and so sometimes when we write, obviously we picture our characters with certain traits. Is there anyone, actors, actresses, models, anybody out there that exists in pop culture that you would cast as your main characters?
I think if you've been on my Facebook page or if you have been on in my street team that I've got, you'll know that Vin Diesel is like Rafe to me. Like if you could just cast him as Rafe, like that'd be great. But I was trying to really think of like a female actress to play Aviana, and I can't come up with anything. Like, the best I can come up with is the girl that plays Ciri in The Witcher.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because her white hair. Like, I think that's it. I think that's the only thing. So, like, if I saw some other actress with white hair, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, her, yeah.
Mm,
But I have to say, like, Rafe, and again, it could just be the shaven head thing, but like Vin Diesel. Yeah.
I love Vin Diesel.
Yes.
Like
I
that's actually
I have to
really
go
like
ahead.
a Vin Diesel where he is or like a younger Vin Diesel.
I would say the Chronicles of Riddick, Vin Diesel.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
That
Can see that.
if you look a lot at Rafe's character and his mannerisms, like that's definitely where I picked up a lot of them. So
Interesting. Really,
yeah.
really cool tip and trick. Okay, so now we're gonna go on to the last part of the interview and just kind of questions that, I would want to know getting to know somebody. So other than reading, writing, and watching your children, what are things you
Yeah.
enjoy doing for fun? What are your interests?
I have chickens and I garden. And so like
I want chickens so bad. My husband said no. He
oh my goodness, they're
like
amazing. They're like little puppies.
I know. And I'm just like, I think it'd be so cool. And I guess like we have like a lot of like predators in this area, and he told me that I would be completely destroyed if something happened to them. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I would just go buy more. I won't name them, and I would just get more. And he's like, no, you won't. So he won't let me have them.
Yeah.
He did let me have a garden. So what
Yeah.
do you grow?
I grow everything.
I love.
I grow so there's not I have to say that I have very picky eaters in my house. Now, my children, I am like, you need to try this and you need to expand your palate. Like, if you don't like it, that's fine. Like, if you don't like the texture, the taste, anything like that, that's okay. But you do need to try it. So I'm growing eggplants and I'm growing tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers and we've got strawberries and we've got watermelons and cantaloupe and we got beans and all the things. We have a bunch of flowers out there too that are coming up, and I'm so excited about them. But then we have like novelty things. Like I like growing the weird, crazy things. So we have like black sunflowers that you can actually like use the seeds in a dye and stuff. And we have dragon's tongue beans that we're growing, and we have like purple beans that we're growing. And so like even if we don't end up eating a whole lot of that, like it's the novelty of the experience that you got to grow something so cool and wacky. Like I let my kids really just kind of like go bonkers. And like when I buy seeds, like I'll buy the weird, exotic varieties and whatnot. Because they're cool. They're cool to grow.
I mean, A plus parenting with like you have to try it, and if you don't like it for some reason, you don't have to like keep eating it. Like really, really great idea. But the black sunflowers. Now I've never seen a sunflowers are my favorite flower.
Yeah.
Um, but I've never seen a black sunflower, so I'm gonna look it up because I need to see it.
If
Um,
you look up, I think it's Hoppy. It's Hopi sunflower.
oh, I see it. Oh, wow.
And
That
you
is
can make like a purple dye like out of the seeds and stuff. And I was like, that'd be so cool. Will I have time to do that? Probably not, but it would be cool.
I love things that you can have multiple uses for.
Yes.
So like, and I grow herbs. And people may think it's weird, but I identify as a witch, especially a green witch, and all of my herbs like have multiple things. Like I never waste any of it. And so I love
Yeah.
that. And I
I
love it.
all of my like even the weeds and things like that, again, I have chickens, so they are honestly, they are like a garbage disposal. Like they get everything, they get all the scraps out of my kitchen, and then they get like all the weeds, they get all the leftovers, they get like once a plant has been completely spent and it's given me all the fruit, like they get that too and they'll eat it. Like it's just everything's just got this. And then like I use their fertilizer for the compost. It's like a big circle there. So I enjoy keeping that closed there.
I love that. I love that. And so this is my favorite question, and I'm gonna get ready to write. Who are some authors and books that you would recommend?
Okay. First of all, is going to be my author mentor, Sarah Emmer. So she wrote Nirel and Dissonance, and she's got a third book coming out. I can't remember the title of it. But it's about a healer, and it's got a morally gray character, or like a male main character. It does have a love triangle. Now I know that's not everybody's jam. It is not my jam. But somehow she has, like, I don't know, by witchcraft or something, taken it and written it in such a way that I'm like, why am I not mad about this? Like, I feel like I should be really mad. So it's a very, very good first book and second book, and I can't wait for the next book to come out. And I would also say top on my list is Grace Draven. She wrote Radiance, and
Yeah, I read that.
yes, it is so good. Like I'm still working through that, but I read Radiance like, oh Lord, like 7 years ago, and it stuck with me so much. I had a plateau where I was an avid reader, and then we had kids and I moved, and all these things happened, and I ended up getting rid of a lot of my books because I just didn't think I would have the time to read anymore. But getting back into it, like I immediately knew that I wanted Radiance on my shelves. And so like that arranged marriage and like the banter between them, it's so good. And then I would say, and she's indie. If I'm not wrong, she is completely independent.
Yes.
She's yeah. And then Alona Andrews is a husband and wife team. They are hybrid. So they have some series that are independently published, which one of them, which is my favorite, is the Innkeeper Chronicles. That is independently published. They actually did this really cool thing where they put out in their newsletter episodes, and it was like one chapter at a time. And then the readers actually got to like kind of go back and forth with the authors and be like, oh, that's so cool. I like this. I don't like this. This should be this way. And kind of go back and forth with them. And then once they got it like finalized into one book, then they had to edit it and they had it published. And then they went on to the next book. And it's a really cool concept. And the Innkeeper Chronicles is like about this house that is like sentient, and it's not just a house, it's like magical, and it's a waypoint, but it's kind of, oh my goodness, it's just really good. It's kind of sci-fi slash fantasy, like paranormal, because it's got like aliens, but the aliens Some of them are really alien-like, and some of them are just like vampires and whatnot. But the storyline, Alona Anders never fails when it comes to the storylines. But then they have like some traditionally published works as well. But yeah, so I would definitely say those three are like top of my list authors.
Awesome. So I have some new stuff to read this weekend. So perfect.
Yes, I will help you grow your TBR.
And so if you had to give some advice to either a younger you or an aspiring author, what would you tell that person?
Just keep writing. If you have a book in mind, if you have a story in mind, don't worry about publishing. Don't worry about editing. Don't worry about cover art or like I mean, again, depending on what kind of an author you are, don't even really worry about plot. Like,
Mhm.
don't worry about plot points and wrapping it all up and your climax and your conclusion and everything like that. Like just write, just get it out. I have a friend who is in the process of writing, and she keeps stopping and rewriting what she already wrote. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Just keep
What
going.
I'm
And she's like, well,
doing.
I can make it. I'm like, don't. She's like, I can make it better. I'm like, that's
That's
fine.
not
That's
what the first
totally
draft is for, right?
right. The first draft is just word vomit. I mean, those alpha readers that read that first draft, I have a pin that I give them that says I survived the first draft because it is so rough, okay? Like the
Okay.
amount of times that you repeat words in one sentence,
Mhm.
it's scary. So like don't get hung up on like editing it or anything like that. Just keep going and get it written. And then like cuz honestly there's such a sense of satisfaction when you get to the end and you're like the end. It's done. And then you're like, I wrote a book. And you have that like dopamine kick and that sense of accomplishment. And then you're like, okay, I can do this. And then you can go back and you can edit and do all those other stuff. But you'll have that like sense of accomplishment that you actually did it instead of just constantly feeling like you're burdened about it and like it's weighing you down and you've got this giant task ahead of you and whatnot. So just write.
Great advice. Great advice. I had to take it. And I know that you say that you don't listen to music necessarily when you write, but are there any songs or like, do you have like a playlist? Anything in particular that reminds you of your books?
I actually have a playlist that I have over on my fan page, that I kinda, like, wrote out for, like, the trilogy, like, which ones. Um, Off the top of my head, I can't recall any of the songs, but there are, like, specific songs where the lyrics remind me of, like, the characters in my book or something like that. I don't traditionally listen to music because I'm too easily influenced by it. So if a song comes on and it's, like, a really happy song and they're writing about, like, killing somebody, I'm like, "Oh, that doesn't fit." Like, so I can't really listen to music. I do put on, like, my noise canceling headphones sometimes, like, when the kids are just a lot and I need to focus on writing. I do put those on sometimes, but I don't necessarily listen to music while I write. I do listen to it while I edit, though. I do that.
Cool.
And then
Cool. And so is there anywhere like real or imagined that kind of inspired you when you were creating your world?
I wouldn't say anything particular. I mean, if you've read fantasy books, before, you'll kind of it's you'll be able to navigate my world fairly easily. It's pretty simple. I People are in the reviews are like, "Oh, your world building is so great." And I'm like, "This thing is slapped together with Elmer's glue and duct tape. Like, I don't know what y'all are talking about here." Um, but like as for like the layout and the scheme, Rin Myth, where the Fate Unraveled trilogy takes place, is actually, I mean, when it comes to the world, it's necessarily our world. Like there's like north and south, and then the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and whatnot. Like that's pretty normal. The next book that I have is a little bit more complicated, and I wrote it with twin moons, so it's got two moons, and I'm like I kind of feel like I need to do some research on how that would affect like waves and stuff and technicalities. But as for like I mean and Rin Myth is very varied in, we have like the sands, so we have like the desert, and then we have like up the north where Mikala is from, that's very much like I don't know, Canada, Alaska, up there, up north. So we have like variations of land, but I would say if you've read any fantasy books, then you'll be pretty familiar. not necessarily like I didn't take my map from anywhere or, anyone, but you'll be familiar with the layout. Like it's pretty easy to understand.
Cool, cool. And do you have any events or signings or anything coming up that we can look forward to?
No, well, I okay, well, I just almost missed a marketing opportunity here. Um June the 16th through the 22nd is going to be a huge hatching day sale. So I'm going to have lots of sprayed edge editions and paperbacks, and I'm going to have like the bare edge paperbacks are going to be on sale, stickers are going to be on sale, everything's going to be on sale. Like it's going to be pretty big. I'm really trying to ramp up to this. But as for like signings and events, I don't have any scheduled yet, but I did hire my first publicist. So she's going to work on getting me into events and things like that. So stay tuned to Facebook and Instagram because I'm sure I'll be posting about them there.
Awesome. And so I know you said that you're writing a new book. Do you have a release date, or is there anything that we can kind of look forward to and the rest of this year?
So I have another book that's it's being edited. In fact, it's almost edited, but because of the sale that's coming up, I'm like, hold on. I'll come back to that in a little
Yes.
bit.
Yes.
But we are planning for the second week of August. So I don't have like a specific date yet. I've always heard people always tell me to publish on Tuesdays. I don't know why.
Tuesdays are for trad.
Yeah, okay, there you go. I'm like, I don't know why we're publishing on Tuesdays, but that's what I've always been told. So I mean, sometime in that second week of August, I haven't completely got it yet. I'm always very anxious about it until I have like the book completely edited. And then I'll go through my proofreader and then ARC readers. I'm hoping to have them in July, like the beginning of July signups. And then they'll get it. And yeah, second week of August, the Petulant Princess will be coming to at everybody.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be looking out for that and signing up for that.
Yeah.
If you have not read the Fate Unraveled trilogy, it's completed. It's on Kindle Unlimited, and this will cure your Fourth Wing hangover if you do have one. Absolutely, Fourth Wing, Iron Flame hangover. Honestly, I love Fourth Wing as much as the other, everybody else, but there's just something about indie authors who write about dragons, and I don't know, like there's something about it, like I like it so much more. And I devoured these in one day. I read all of them back to back in one day.
That's
Because
oh my goodness, that's amazing.
I'm a very fast reader. It's ADHD. But absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today. I am so excited to see what else you have up your sleeve, and definitely going to be checking out your little Hatching Day sale.
Yeah, you should. You should. Thank you so much. It's been
You're
fun.
so welcome. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, goodbye.
All right, bye.